Welcome to the Simply Sales Podcast. This podcast is where we share and discuss our experiences and ideas in the world of sales. Each week we will provide you with actionable content to help you improve your sales game. We hope you enjoy this episode. Hi everyone and welcome to episode 003 of the Simply Sales Podcast. Today we're going to go through my 5 top tips to improve your sales game. Number 1, commit. You need to be fully committed to being the best sales exec in your business. You need to make a decision today to be fully committed. If you're not fully committed to being the best sales exec in your business, why not? Do you not enjoy the role? Do you not enjoy the job? Do you not enjoy the product or service that you're selling? If you don't, you have the power to change that situation. You need to be fully committed to the role of being that salesperson. If you're not fully committed, then you might as well just quit. You have the control to change that situation if you're unhappy, for whatever reason. If it's your boss, if it's one of your peers, you have the decision to change that situation. Okay? But the first thing you need to do, if you want to be the best, is you need to be committed. Step number 2, you need to level up your game. The only way you're going to be able to level up your game is to sit down, take a step back and identify your weakest areas. You need to identify what you are doing wrong or what you're not doing before you can then move forward. Sometimes in life you have to take a step back before you can take 2 steps forward. And this is exactly the same as that. Perhaps you could ask your boss what area you need to improve on. Perhaps they could look through your stats and find out maybe you're not making enough cold calls on a daily basis. Maybe you're not asking the customer the closing question at the right time. Perhaps you just don't feel confident in the product or service that you're selling, and maybe it's a lack of product knowledge. If that's the case, it's not the company to make you aware of the product or what it does. For you to be the best salesperson, you need to know everything about that product. Maybe you're just not certain about sales altogether, and that's fine. There are different types of sales roles out there that are right for different people. So as an example, when I first started out in sales, I did car sales, and then I had a very short period. And when I say a very short period, I did it for 2 weeks. And the reason why I did it for 2 weeks was because I hated it. I absolutely hated it with a passion. I remember I was offered a job as a kitchen salesman, and I thought, how amazing is that? Selling kitchens. You go around to someone's house, you measure up, it's an easy purchase. How wrong was I? I could not get my head around the fact that I was trying to close a customer in their own house. I just felt uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable being in their house, showing them the products and selling to them effectively on their patch. I just couldn't do it. So I decided that wasn't right for me, and within 2 weeks I'd left and I went back into the motor trade. So believe me when I say this, not every sales job is right for you, but there are other sales jobs that are. Tip number 3 is man in the mirror. Now, I learnt this very early on in my sales career. I read a book by a guy called Richard Denny, and it was called Selling to Win. And I heard about this book because I was told by the top salesperson at the time to go and read it. Now, how that conversation came about, I went and asked the top salesperson at the time, how do you do it? How do you sell as many cars as you do? How are you the best? I want to learn from you because you are the best at what you do. And his tip to me was go and buy that book. I've still got that book today. It's on my bookshelf. I haven't read it for probably in about a year or so. And to be honest, after I finish recording this episode, I'm going to go and pick it up and start reading it again because it's definitely worth reading over and over again. I mean, just from thinking about it, there's a chapter in the book where it talks about you take your car to have an MOT or a service and you have that done annually because it needs it, just because it's good to have it done. It's just good to refresh everything, have a clear out and so on. And in the book, they talk about the concept of refreshing your mind. So every 6 months, just go back and read that book again, or listen to that podcast, or listen to that audio book, because what it does is it just reinstills the software into your mind, because the mind is like a computer. So we've digressed, but the point is you need to find out who the top salesperson in your business is. That's not going to be hard. Once you've found them, you need to ask them, how are you the best? If they're reluctant because they don't want you to challenge them, then mirror them. Copy what they do, see what they say, see how they act, and then follow them and learn off of them from a distance. You don't need to be right next to them to be able to learn from someone. So you need to mirror the greatest salesperson in your business. They say that your network is your net worth, and I completely agree with that. So basically, the people you spend the most amount of time with are the people that dictate how much you are worth. I.e., if you spend your time with people that are not very good at sales, that are in the bottom 10% of the company, the likelihood is naturally you will be within that bottom 10%. However, if you're acting and you're doing like the top 10%, you're going to be in the top 10%. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So tip number 4 is continually educate yourself. Now, I'm a firm believer in personal development, developing myself, developing my mind, and ever since I left school, I hated school. I hated learning. But ever since I left school and I realised actually I have the opportunity to change my life, I can do this, but what I need to do is I need to go out my way to make it happen. So you need to visualise yourself as one of the top sales execs in your business. You need to imagine that you are performing at that level, at the very best level you can on a daily basis. Then what you need to do is feed your subconscious mind with continual education. So you need to continually educate yourself, whether that's in the car, at home, on the way to work, on the go, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Listen to audiobooks, listen to podcasts, just get that education in. And the thing is, subconsciously, if you're driving to work and you're listening to that audiobook, you can listen to it on 2 times speed. You don't really need to make sense of it once it's going in, because once it's going in, it just sorts itself out. And then, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, where you're driving home and all of a sudden you're at home and you don't know how you got there. It's a weird thing how it happens, but it just happens, and that's because your subconscious mind just takes over. I mean, even when you're asleep, your subconscious mind is constantly running, and that's why you have dreams. So if you're feeding your subconscious mind, you naturally will become more of a salesperson and become one of the best salespeople in your company. So tip number 5 is plan to win. So this is a little bit hard for me to explain in detail over the podcast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you an opportunity to get a free copy of my target planning tool. So if you head over to Facebook and search the Simply Sales podcast, like the page and send me a message, and then I'll email it over to you or send it as a message through Facebook. But just to give you an indication of how this works and what I mean. So I would set myself a target at the end of the year. For the next year, I would set myself a target. So as an example, if I said I wanted to sell 250 vehicles in the next 12 months, how am I going to do it? So I would write down 250 vehicles. I would then divide it by the 12 months. And then what I would do is I would adjust those figures accordingly to the quiet times and the busy times of the year. Here in the UK, we have 2 plate changes a month in the automotive industry. So we have the new registration comes out in March and September. Here in the UK in August, all of the schools are closed for approximately 4 to 6 weeks. So August can predominantly be a quiet month unless you make it busy. So August can be quite quiet and everything's loaded into September. So what you tend to find happens is you'll have 2 months kind of rolled into one. So what you need to do is obviously just account for that when you're working out your sort of, monthly target, if you like. Once you've broken it down to your 12 months, you then need to break it down into days, okay? The point of this, of having it down to daily, is it then gives you something to aim for every single day. So if you said, right, okay, every single day I need to make 1 sale, you can then take that and go, right, okay, how many customers do I need to see to sell 1 product? So perhaps you may have a 25% closing rate. So you need to see 4 customers to sell 1 product. But how many appointments do you need to have? How many phone calls or how many cold calls do you need to have to get those 4 appointments? Yeah, do you see where I'm going with this? So it may be that you need to make 25 phone calls to get 4 appointments to sell 1 product a day. Yeah. Now, obviously, if you're only making 10 phone calls instead of 20, that means you're only going to get 2 appointments, and then you're probably not going to sell anything. So it's all relative, but that just gives you an indication of what I mean of how you break it down. So like I said, if you head over to the Facebook page, Simply Sales Podcast, okay, send me a message or messenger and I'll email it over to you. I hope this podcast has helped you in some way, even if you've only picked up on one thing I've said. Please listen to it again. Please share it with your friends. I'd really appreciate it if you did get some value from this. I mean, I don't charge for my time to record this. I don't charge, I don't place adverts on it. I don't try and sell you anything. So please, if you genuinely are liking the content that I'm sharing with you, then please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. It would mean the world to me if you could. So once again, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast, and level up your game.